And everything you see is, use AI for your resume, use AI to do this, use AI to prep for an interview, use AI. But you have to keep that humanity in there.
Now the question goes to: do you agree that when you tailor your resume, or not your resume, your application, because application is different,
Yeah.
tailoring your application is just, it's legit.
I started, the first one was like off of Thistle Street.
Oh my god.
Like a very small, like where you are looking to transition, you want to not just look at the career and all those aspects of it. You want to also look at the place that you're going.
How you say it, Mulkhaya, by the way?
Malaya.
Okay. So it goes away also, because
Yes.
you, in this mission there is some part that it's okay. Next chapter.
Yes.
This is like a special episode, I would say, because in Bel'Arabi, welcome in Bel'Arabi, of course, but Bel'Arabi is Bel'Arabi.
Yes.
And you know what does that mean, right?
I
You
know
speak
what that
Arabic.
means. Yes.
And I have to come to this point after you introduce yourself, but this one is going to be in English, which is a bit of like, I would say, go away from the main purpose is serving the community that it's for Arabs, and we're speaking Bel'Arabi in Arabic, and because you can't speak very well in Arabic, right? You can
Not very well.
Yeah, but I'm gonna try you. I'm gonna test you on
Okay,
that.
okay,
We're
we'll
gonna
see.
test your Arabic skills, and also I want to start, of course, with you to introduce yourself, and then we're gonna go in these. But before that, I wanted to announce, because since this is a big topic, that it's it's very important for everyone, for all immigrants. It's not only for Arabs. So career coaching, recruiting, job hunting, building your resume, all this kind of stuff. Even career shifting. This is transition from career to another. This is big challenge. So all these things will need us to meet more. But anyway, Cam, first, welcome again in Bel'Arabi. Go with introducing yourself, and then
Sure. So my name is Kim Saeed. Now, the funny thing, when I was in Egypt, it was Kim Russell. And then when I came to, when we moved here back to the States from Egypt, I said, just for the sake of the culture, and, husband and wife typically are going to have the same last name.
Yep.
And so I changed it. And we got our marriage certified and everything, and then was Kim Saeed. So for the longest
Saeed.
time,
It's Saeed or Saeed, by the way.
Saeed.
I don't know. I never asked him. Hey, I have to
yeah.
ask him this question, by the way.
It's one thing that I think it depends on who's saying it and how fast they're saying it, and at the moment.
Yeah.
And sometimes
for
people,
you, but not for him. or for
right?
me, at
I know,
least.
of course. But just recently, he was looking at some papers from his sister, and his sister was spelling Said with a Y, and he always had said we need to spell with an I.
With an I.
Yeah, so I don't know. I think
Yeah, it's very interesting. I myself am married to not Egyptian, and it's a bit of challenge even in the house. Your kids, I love Adam, Yusuf, and Layla. All of them, they are very, and I always give the recognition, the credit for you in that. He knows that. I always tell him like, oh, this is not you for sure. This is how cameras them up. They are very nice, decent people.
Yeah, so as you said, like my husband and I met in Egypt,
Yep.
and then we had 3 kids, all in Egypt, even though one of them, with Adam, we were actually in northern Iraq by that time.
Oh yeah.
We were in the Kurdish region. And to feel at home and more at safe having Adam, we went back to Egypt. So didn't come to the U.S., went back to Egypt.
Yeah.
And all 3 of them were born there, and, they have that dual nationality, feel that sense of home in both places that they're at. So, just when people ask me where am I from, or, what's home for me, it's a very complicated question.
Especially for US.
Yes,
Even US.
very much so, because
you moved in US
I
as
moved, moved in the U.S. My grandmother was Sicilian, and I spent a lot of time with. And so, I made cookies with her and holidays with her. And
Did you ever had a chance to be with The Godfather at some point in Sicilia?
Yeah,
I love that movie.
So for me, right now I'm working on my Italian nationality. So for me, I don't feel connected to one certain culture because I've always kind of brought everything in together.
Yeah, I know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I think this is for the kids as well.
yeah, yeah. So we try to connect them with a little bit of everything, and I think that that's really helped them be able to succeed because they don't, they're not very closed-minded or just
Why are
stick
you
to one
emotional,
thing.
by the way? I see the tears. I'm like, why you're emotional? You just,
Yeah, because it is.
it's very, yeah, I
It
understand.
is.
But at some point, I think it's also, you go always to where you grown up. I was just had one conversation with another guest before, and we were discussing the same thing. He was an Arab, of course, but it's we discussed the same point: is what you call your home.
Yeah.
And I guess
Yeah.
we agree, everyone agrees it's where you grown up, because this is where you have the main or the most, like emotional or so close
Memories.
emotions and experience to your heart when you
Yeah.
were a kid, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. But I have had so many experiences in different places,
yeah,
you know.
yeah.
And so for me, it's harder when people ask. I always say, I mean, it depends on what time of my life you're asking me.
Is it because you had you drank from the Nile River? ما شربتش من
Maybe.
نيلها. You know what does
Maybe.
that mean, right? ما
Yes, once
شربتش
you
من
drink
نيلها.
from the Nile River,
Yeah.
then you
So
always.
I'm glad you say that. You
Yes.
know, I'm myself. I'm very attached to Egypt. It's like we always say something. I remember that was this article about someone who always traveled between UAE, Dubai, Emirates or Abu Dhabi, back to Egypt and back and forth. And someone, like, I think the officer at the airport was asking, like, which one you call more your country? And he said you can't just split them from each other. It's attached. It's a whole package. It's like a husband and wife relationship and a father or like a son with a mother relationship. So he's
Yeah.
like, what do you mean? He's like, Egypt is like my mom. I always have to go back to her. But Dubai or like Abu Dhabi or whatever, like where your expat is my wife. That also I can't give it up. So it's kind of like complex relationship. So since we started in Egypt, just tell me your experience in Egypt. What did you have like? Especially, I had your food, your tasty molokhaya. We had molokhaya, I think, bamia,
Yeah, Mulhay.
okra, and
Yeah.
how you say it, molokhaya, by the way?
Mulhay.
Okay. See, I told I'm gonna test your skills.
Yeah. I learned a lot from my mother-in-law and that was the great thing I think about
Kitchen, of
being
course.
there because I learned so much from her and from the people of how to make certain dishes.
Yeah.
And so then I can bring it back here. But even when we were in northern Iraq, there was a young couple that was working there, and we all lived in the
Egyptians
same
or
building.
Iraqi?
Yes, Egyptians, all
Okay.
working in the same building. And I knew how to make mashi crumb, and his
Yeah.
wife didn't.
Oh my
And
god.
so he wanted me to show her how to
Oh
make
my
it.
god. And she's Egyptian. They
Yeah,
both
and she was
Egyptian.
Egyptian, so I was
Okay.
like, somehow this is like,
insulting.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna do
this is- I'm
that.
not
She's
sure.
gonna hate me for that.
But yeah, so so
Yeah.
much of
How
of the
many years
culture.
did you stay
Yeah.
in Egypt for? How long?
12.
12 years. In
12
And
years.
this is a kind of like career transition because in all these years, 12 years total Egypt and Iraq or
Between
okay,
the two.
between the two. How many years in Iraq itself?
Two.
Two. And by saying your career and your journey in this career, I don't know even, I'm interested more to learn and to let people know about careers, like how to find job, all these kind of things. So, but I don't mind if you want to go from, because I have one of the questions is what was your first job?
So the very first job that I ever had, I just basically, like most teenagers, I needed money, and I was in high school, and I was going on a trip. So my parents actually worked in sales, and it was grocery sales. So they worked for like manufacturers, like you would see, General Mills who make cereal, or they worked directly for those types of companies, and they would get to know all of the owners of the grocery stores in the area. And so, of course, networking to me from that point in time has always been one of the things I've seen over and over and over as a trend in getting a job, almost from my first job, which was my parents taking me up to one of the grocery stores, introducing me to one of the owners and saying, she needs a job. And can you give her a
What
job?
did you do? Cashier or like in the shelves back in the warehouse,
You
just
wouldn't
putting the
believe.
shelves?
I was working in the deli, So
Okay.
it was like they had a deli, which also had like a hot, hot meals.
Okay.
Workers would come for lunch and
Okay.
get food. They made the best catfish because we're in the South, of
Wow. Yeah.
course.
I like
And
it. You know.
so I would work in the deli, and eventually I made it up to being a cashier, and then I worked in the office. And so I worked there through part of college, but it just started with, networking by my parents, knowing the owner, and then being able to get a job there.
Mhm.
And then from there, it was just trying to figure it out.
It was always human interaction back then. This is what
It
when you're talking
was.
like, because I'm one of the people who are like I'm interested, of course, in technology and evolution, but you can say I'm an old school still. Like I don't like too much, technology or too much evolution. Some people that I don't like them to be involved in my life, they're gonna be involved in my life because of
Yeah.
technology at some point. Elon Musk now is doing this thing, and everyone is talking about they're gonna put something in your head. Like, and we have actually a funny
Oh,
Egyptian
yes.
movie, Lembi Tamania Giga, about this thing, and it's all about like they're gonna use you. You're gonna be like a robot at some point. But AI, human interaction. You started, you said, in a grocery store, so this was just to make money.
Yeah.
Of course, the career takes you, after that you graduated, you had your degree. What is your degree, by the way? In which field? For it has teaching or more like
No,
human resources?
so the first degree I had was more interdisciplinary,
Okay.
because I originally wanted to be a writer,
Okay.
and then I thought, I don't know if I can lie, and I feel like probably at that time there was a lot of journalism which wasn't
There you go.
completely honest.
You can write books. You don't have to lie.
Well, that's true.
Even like novels,
That's true.
you're lying, but from a fiction, it's different. Like
That's
I mean,
right. That's right. So I switched around a little bit. I thought about finance, and then I just said, you know what? I just want to get out. So I ended up with psychology, and I think that was probably the first time I realized that people and understanding people and being able to help people was something that I really wanted to do. And so I went around for a little bit trying to figure out what I was actually going to do as a career, and then ended up with my first job in HR around the early 2000s. Once I entered HR, I think as a profession, so the very first HR job that I had, it was in a communications company. So they had just taken over, trying to build up some staff. And I went, and it was like supposed to be a temporary assignment.
yeah,
And so I went, I had no idea what HR was. I was just going,
going
and I
with
was
the
going to
flow.
do a job, and then I would just find out when I got there. And I went, and there was a system that they were using at that time, which was PeopleSoft. And PeopleSoft has developed a lot over the last 20 years, but it was an HR system that they were using, and there was the CEO, she needed a report, and so the manager told me, and I didn't even know what HR was. I'd certainly never touched HR software. And I went in, and so she said, hey, we need this report. Can you get it? So I went in and looked around and generated the report. I sent it to the manager, and the manager sent it to the CEO. And then the CEO came down to our office, and she said, where did this report come from? And then I said, oh, I created the report. Do you need something different? And she said, no, I've been asking for this report like 3 or 4 weeks, and nobody's been able to give it to me. We need to hire her. Figure out what you need to do.
And
to
that
bring
was
her
you. You
on.
got this report.
And that was me.
What made you come with this idea? Why did you get this report in the first place? They didn't ask for it?
Yeah, she had asked for it.
No, I mean directly for you.
The
from
manager had asked if I could get the report,
You. Oh, okay.
and I just looked around
You looked around and you
in the
found a
system,
way.
and I found a way and generated the report. And so when she came and she said, I've been asking for it, nobody's been able to give it to me, hire her, I was like, okay, I think I could do this. This is great. And then that was how I started, and I stayed there and went to the Department of Defense. From start to finish in an organization, your people are really your number one, thing that you have to make sure taken care of. And so that also, having that background in psychology, it was an easy transition to look at teaching. So when I went to Egypt, I went and I knew nothing. Like when I got off the plane,
We're
I
speaking about
didn't
Shwayfat now, right?
know. No, when I got off the
Before
plane in
Shwayfat?
Egypt, I didn't even know how to speak a word of Arabic. Like
Yeah.
I didn't know how to say hello.
Yeah, I know you had a bad experience, and please don't get to this
I'm
part.
not going to get to that point. No, and every experience made me more strong in
Of
understanding
course.
everything
But
about Egypt.
some bad experience would be bad to be told.
No, 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 no. I don't take away
And then you
anything
lost your
bad
money
from
or something,
anything.
and the
There were,
cab, the taxi had
well,
some issues, and
by
people were
that
like,
time, yeah, there were. It was, I think, worse than today. It's so much better
yeah.
because I think the country has more influence in general. It holds on to its roots, and at the same time, it's developed a lot more, even that I've seen right over the last 15 years. So it's not the same as it was at that time, right? And just off the plane, people are going to try to take advantage of
Yeah.
you being by myself. And then she wasn't much
She's
help
different.
because
Okay, let's go. You have money.
so
Yeah, what do you need? We're going to get you whatever you want.
exactly. So yeah, so I started out in smaller schools, and again, it was networking and knowing people. And I had a teacher that was in the school with me who said, "Oh, I really want to work at Shoy Fat." And I had no idea. I didn't even know what Shoy Fat
Yep.
was. And I went home and I told my husband, Mohammed, I said, "Hey, have you ever heard of this school called Shoy Fat?" And he was like, "Oh, yeah, it's such a good school. They're in the Emirates, they're everywhere." And so I said, "Okay, I'm going to apply there." And I had to apply, I think, 3 times before
You found one.
I finally was able to get in the school.
I think this is also part of the challenges. It's not only you did a career shift, it was one of the points I wanted to discuss, but see, your storytelling already is going to these sports, just you find yourself in it, because you had career transition for the second time, I would say, and also moving across the country, it's another thing.
Yeah.
And then also going to something new. You're a foreigner. You don't even speak Arabic or anything. You don't know the language. You don't know the
Yeah.
culture. You need help. And this is very interesting to know that you can see all of that. But I won't ask you this type of just typical question. How did you overcome this challenge? Because your storytelling, showing this part, how strong you are, how you earn or you learn from this experience.
Yeah, I think it was the motivation because I've always been motivated to want to do better, do more.
Do your,
And
yourself.
yeah, and so it was a lot of motivation to figure things out. And of course, by this time, I think we had Yusuf. And so
My friend. My
yeah.
big friend.
Yeah, so he was like, going to be what, 19 this year, right? And
Yeah.
so at that
Oh, time
time,
passed, man.
yeah. So I mean, at that time, it was like I grew up just you have to take care of your family.
Yep.
I mean, whether you're a man or a woman or whoever you are, it's about being in a partnership together and taking
Yep.
care of your family. And I knew that there had to be more. So when I started with very small schools, there were hardly any foreigners. And I didn't even know there were foreigners.
But you didn't go to any of the small ones. You
I
went
went.
there. The first one was
No, I
Shwayfat.
started at small ones.
Oh,
I
which
started
one?
at
What was the
like
name? Mahdi? Was it in Mahdi?
no. So I started. The first one was like off of Thistle Street.
Oh my God.
Like a very small, like one building, almost
Okay.
looked like.
What is the name? Do you remember the name? Fisher
don't
Street? Is it
remember.
Fadl School or like Surur or
I don't
something like
remember
that?
the name of it, to be honest. I'd have to look and see.
Oh my God.
But it
Oh
was
my
so.
God.
This is
Feel
where.
bad for you. I'm so
this
sorry,
is-
Cam. You've been through this experience.
But yeah, it was private schools, but it was
Like the small ones.
small ones, not very well known. Another one that I went to in 6 October, it was, on Alex Desert Road.
Oh, Masr Logat? Is it Masr Logat or?
No, it kind of just faded into the background because once I went to
Yeah,
Shwayfat,
long
I just
time,
kind of
yeah.
forgot about
No,
everything
also the
else.
change from a place to a place and all these memories, see, they get crowded in your head.
Oh,
And
yeah.
at some point, you miss things. My friends, they remind me with things in like 15, 20 years ago. And then I'm like, what are you talking about? And then they're like, oh, yeah, I get it. At some point, I reached there, but it's like very back. I'm like, oh
Oh,
my
yeah.
God, I didn't know that I'm that old. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
this,
And I think that's the thing, is that there was so much that was happening because I was still learning about the culture and integrating into a family, integrating into his family. So, going through all of these different things. I mean, even when I was growing up, I went to 12 different schools throughout my 12 years of from primary to high school.
hmm
So going to 12 different schools, moving between cities, all those things, I already experienced that growing up. So change came easier for me
for
anyway
you,
because
yeah,
I
you
changed
had
so
it.
much.
And I guess this is the main reason doing BelA'rabi, by the way. It's to keep the culture, keep the language, keep this connection between our heritage, culture, whatever, and at the same time serve the community.
When Yusuf was first born and we were talking about languages and things, one of the things that we said is, okay, well, in the society and everywhere around him and in his, family, his grandmother, grandfather, and everyone, there's Arabic.
Yep.
And so I didn't want him to lose the English also because I knew it was also important. So that's why we
In
chose
your
to
head,
speak
you had the
English at
plans at some
home.
point moving back to US.
Not at that time. I mean,
Really?
at that time,
When you left, you give your back
at
to
that time, I was like,
Oh.
I'm fine, I'm good.
That's why it was emotional. Okay, I get it now.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was, it was, I didn't have that attachment. And probably it is a lot from having so much change
Yeah.
growing up, and then not having an attachment to certain things. Of course,
Certain people.
people
Yeah.
I have
Thank you.
attachments to, but places not as much. Things, not as much. So
Yeah.
for me, it's been a little bit easier, and trying to get them to understand that too.
Yeah.
That the people are what matters the most. And I think that goes back to my career because that's fundamentally, psychology, HR, even teaching. It's all about the people.
Yeah. You're right. I agree. That's why I think even we're doing this. It's
Yeah.
for the people.
Exactly.
you go to the
It's for
same
the
point.
people.
Thank you.
And now, even today, in what I do,
AI
because
is very involved. I guess
AI
this
is very
is
involved,
Yeah.
and that's definitely the idea when we were talking about the theme, is just how you have to keep the humanity in a space which is so tech driven and becoming more and more. And everything you see is, use AI for your resume, use AI to do this, use AI to prep for an interview, use AI. But you have to keep that humanity in there. You have to
interaction. You're
keep
dealing with people.
the
Yeah.
people part of it in there. But, all of my experiences in Egypt were, I think, leading me to the
Where
point
you
when
are
we
right
came
now.
back.
Yeah.
And I think we came back in a really good time. I was happy. I was fine. I was enjoying,
Being
Sharm
there.
el Sheikh. I was
Yeah.
enjoying my vacations. I
Yeah,
was
yeah,
enjoying
yeah.
my time. But the kids were getting older, and we knew that they were going to want to go to university here. Yusuf was
course.
already, I think, in grade 6, and then that's when we
See,
moved
again,
back.
I'm saying at somewhere back of your head, there was a plan for your kids. Because I think for me, even the same thing. Me and Tara, when we came to move to US, she was more on a hurry. She was a bit of rushing. Especially Trump was coming and all these things. And she's like, if you don't do it now, we might never do it. So I guess always, and I think this is take the credit for women. They think for these kind of things more than us.
Yes.
Like, you just go now.
Planning,
It's
future
fine.
planning. It's all
Yeah.
about future planning.
She's very into planning, and she gets me.
And I
gets
know,
on my
man,
nerve.
trust me, I have, Muhammad, and future planning is always like, I have to keep,
You remind him, like, there's this. He's
reminding
like, oh,
him.
why we don't do this? And then you're like, because we have this coming. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm like 5 steps
Do
ahead.
you have a calendar in your head like this? When we go to these, like, do you have something like comes, like just this VR thing that no one can see, just you can see, and then it comes
Exactly.
in front of your eyes.
Yes.
There's calendar, there's events.
Yes. And that I think also has a little bit of a tie into what we're talking about, because once we made the decision and I was like, I can stay. I don't have to go. I'm not,
Everyone is
married to
rushing, everyone's stressed, and you're like,
and I'm like, and
I'm
it was,
going back to the hurricanes
yeah,
and
I mean,
flooding.
it's just like,
You don't know what
I'm
you got to see
okay.
there.
Exactly. So, for me, once we made the decision, we visited over the summer, and then we bought a house, and then I was like on a mission. So we decided in December of
Mission mode.
2014. And then once we decided December of 2014, we said, okay, we're going to go in 2015 and we're going to look for a house and start to get things established. So once I have like an end goal and I have a beginning,
Yeah.
I fill in the middle.
That's
with
why
everything.
some of the memories goes away also, because you
Yes.
in this mission there is some part that it's okay. Next chapter.
Yes, but just from a transitioning perspective from Egypt to the U.S., thinking about these things was really important of how do I transition. Being gone 12 years, even for me, it was like, how do I transition? So much has changed. And one of the things in relation to jobs that I started doing is just doing online. So I went online, what can I do? And I started finding jobs online
And
that I could do.
hell, you're back to your career now. You're doing what you're teaching people
Yes,
to do.
yeah, exactly.
So you have it's a challenge. If you don't find a job, then this is not your
Exactly.
job.
Exactly.
Shouldn't be doing this and find something
Exactly.
else.
And I didn't go right back into HR, right? Like it was a process. I went to,
Oh, so you were even more interested in different
I was, well,
fields.
I loved HR.
Okay.
But
I mean, you were more open to whatever comes because you need to find a
exactly,
job. Okay.
exactly.
And this is
Yeah.
part of the equation that you need to be flexible. Find a job,
Exactly.
it's, I guess.
Yes, find a job, doing something, start early, prepare early, look online, see what you can do online. We're living in a great time where you have more advantage to be able to do that, as opposed to, 20 years ago where you just had to go and then just see what would happen. So for me, I started looking and I started doing just like gig work, like there was something which transitioned into Upwork now. And, if you don't know anything about Upwork, you just
what do you
go
mean when you
and-
say Upwork?
Upwork is a platform where you can go and people need experts in certain types of roles. It's advanced a lot. It used to be called something else. So when I went, I was doing just like administrative work for a professor.
Okay.
Who needed like all different types of things done. And then I took and this goes back to the networking thing, I took a role or like a gig, which was for a psychologist. And she wanted me to help her with some different things. Like she was looking at conferences where she could speak. And so, everything you could do online. Well, she had a friend who also then needed someone. And so then she connected me with that friend. And so I was like, yeah, sure, I can help you, whatever you need, And she actually was a psychologist or psychiatrist, and she
Back to your original.
Yes, she works with the VA. So she does evaluations.
VA, the first?
The VA, the Veterans Affairs, she does psych evals for people that have been in the military with PTSD and things like that for the Veterans Affairs office. She connected me with another psychiatrist. They were all in Atlanta, so she connected me with another one.
Can we take this as a commercial to
Yes.
people advertise if they need some psychology, like psychiatrist help?
Yeah, but it was getting one role and then her, doing really well, and then her connecting me with another one who connected me with another one. And so by the time we moved back, I had like 4 or 5 clients that I was doing work for, and we had fully furnished our house. We had everything. I mean, from a waffle maker to pajamas on the bed for the kids when we arrived. So that whole year, I had been working and preparing,
Planning
and
before you
planning.
moved.
Yes,
Yeah.
before we moved, had a bank account, have reestablished my credit again, and those things. Some of these things are easier because I was American. Some of these things are more
It's
difficult.
way easier, not only
Yes.
easier, it's way easier.
Yes, but you can still do them. I mean, people go to Upwork and hire. I had an Egyptian company who hired me from Upwork while I was here.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Good to know.
do HR. So I mean, anything is possible, but I think you just start kind of getting acclimated to different things. Like people don't realize, even job titles, job roles. It's having a little bit of the humility and understanding,
Yep.
like that you're going to a new place where there's so many people who are already established, and understanding that you're going to have to kind of start over, so to speak, especially people who are in. So I have a friend, we taught together at Shoy Fat. I think she moved back either right after I did or right before I did. But her husband was a dentist in Egypt, so when he came back, he's had to start basically all over again.
Oh,
He had
yeah.
to, be certified to be, or be board certified to be a dentist in
Dentist in
the
the
U.S.
US.
and go through the whole process. And I know so many of the people we know in the
Yeah.
community
In
here have
medicine.
had to do that, especially in medicine, and just understanding how your degree translates, even for Muhammad, when he was in,
He was
also
teaching.
in
He was a
teaching.
teacher. Yeah,
He was
yeah, I
also
know.
in
He
teaching.
was a famous teacher. It's a good thing that
Yes,
we
I
have to
mean,
say. He was a very famous teacher in
he
Egypt. I'm
was,
not gonna
and
say his name. Some of his
he,
students might now say, "Oh, I don't like this guy."
oh, no, they loved him. He still keeps in contact with
Yeah,
them.
of
But
course.
the last year, he was only tutoring. I mean, he was tutoring for like ministers' kids and, high officials
He also did
within
a
Egypt.
transition, career
He
shifting.
he did,
He's
and
into IT now.
yes,
From
and
English
that's
teacher, and this is his degree. He's a
amazing,
teacher
right?
in Egypt. His degree, I know that. But
Exactly,
now he's an
exactly.
IT, working in IT, big company, and it's
Yes.
and not any part of IT. He's in developing applications. Everything's like, man,
Thank
this
you,
is
thank you. I know that's because
these
of
family
me.
are
No.
really full of like surprises. Like,
Yeah, exactly. But, that transition, I think, the last year, while I was planning and doing all of the things, he was just working nonstop all the time.
yep.
And so he didn't have the same opportunity, or I think even awareness, because sometimes, you're so used to how things are,
Yeah,
and you
your
just think,
lifestyle.
okay, it will, it'll work out. So he didn't have the same opportunity to be as prepared. So when we came here, it was like, okay, what am I going to do? And he always had wanted to work in IT.
He loved it even before he started.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
that's
And
right.
so,
It was a trend at this time also.
yeah.
This era.
But IT is not easy to get into if you have never worked in it
It's
before.
like the ocean.
It's
Always, you have to keep swimming.
That's
Can't
right.
stop.
That's right.
Always.
And it changes so much.
Yeah.
It really changes a lot.
Quick.
And so,
So quick and so much. Yeah.
yes. And one thing I will say is whenever you are looking to transition, you want to not just look at the career and all those aspects of it. You want to also look at the place that you're going, because that was a challenge. We wanted to be closer to my parents, and actually the first house we bought was right across the street from them. Like we couldn't get any closer except
Louisiana,
living with them.
in Louisiana.
In Louisiana, which is, I didn't realize, because when I left Louisiana and I went to Egypt, I was
This was
so
your
naive.
first time out. Yeah.
First time out, first passport. I was so naive in how the world worked and how
And you
small.
go to Egypt, or
On Egypt,
other
yes.
than all these countries, but Egypt,
Exactly.
it's a bit of challenge. I can tell.
Exactly. And I think for me, diversity just wasn't even a thing, because it's not in Louisiana, especially in smaller parts of Louisiana. It's a great country. It has a lot of culture from the sense of the Spanish influence and other influences. But ultimately, I think anybody who lives there knows it's just not as diverse as you would normally want to be in an environment. So that was another challenge, especially for him, especially that he was having to do jobs where he's having to interact with people a lot, all different types of people. Just for someone who's coming here from another country, you really have to think about, where can I find community and where can I connect? Right. And so how we even found the Egyptian American Society was through Facebook. We were just like, hey, look up Egypt in Facebook.
I
and
think
found
it's
them.
always coming, Egyptian American Society, because I just met also recently with Rami, if you remember Rami. And
Yeah.
Rami is one of the people who started this on the social media. But this is, you're talking now networking.
So, yeah. So, when we're talking about how you can come here and be successful once you get here, right? You have to have that humility. You have to understand the market.
You have to be
You
flexible.
you have to know where you're going, right? That plays a part in the ability to get a job. Because if you go to a place which is not as diverse, then, are they going to want Mark Smith or are they going to want Muhammad Saeed.
Muhammad
Well,
Saeed.
they're probably going to want Mark Smith.
In a different way, still it's the same case because in Egypt, certain jobs at least, I'm not talking about like big companies, but I would trust to have someone who speak the language, knows the culture, versus having someone who's just new here. So I guess it's the same thing. So I'm just trying to get back to it's not a bad
Yes.
thing as much as just this is the nature.
Yeah, it is. It's the nature. And so if you're in a place which is more diverse, like Houston, you aren't going to face that as much.
Okay, going back to Louisiana and the transition. And
Yes.
by the way, Louisiana is the first one who made the Cajun food, right?
Yes.
This is
Oh,
their
and
trademark.
I already said they
I'm
have
gonna have some today for
fantastic
sure. You made me
things.
hungry now.
They
I'm
had
just speaking
fantastic
of this.
things. They have great things about Louisiana, but diversity has just not been one of them,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
And so when you're trying to think about transitioning, you have to think about all these different aspects that go beyond just what have I done and what is my resume and, what do I want to do
Yeah,
when
and
I
this
go
goes
there.
to tailoring your resume because this is something I always argue with other people. Like they say, "Oh, I have my resume. I don't want to change it." Why you don't want to change? And by saying changing, I'm not saying faking.
Yeah.
I'm not saying just say that I'm a doctor and you're an engineer.
Yeah.
Like just you do these things. Do you know these things? Yes. So now the question goes to: do you agree that when you tailor your resume, or not your resume, your application, because application is different.
Yeah.
Tailoring your application is just it's legit. You can do that. It's fine. But tailoring your resume is the big question.
Yeah.
Can you do that by just saying like, okay, I have 12 years of experience between sales, customer service, accounting, whatever. Let's just say two of them. Okay, customer service and sales. You're still doing this. They are somehow customer service. You're selling service.
Yeah.
Sales. You're selling whatever you're selling,
Yeah.
right? Even if you're just selling, a bunch of nonsense stuff in the street, you're still selling something. Whether you're selling a goods or services. Now, I guess, can you do that? Is it legit? Are you lying? People do like it.
No.
What is the challenges for this?
No, so I do a guest lecture every semester for actually it's one of the people that I met through networking with the different psychologists in Atlanta. She's actually an adjunct professor at an all girls college there, Spelman College. And so every semester I do a guest lecture just on resumes and cover letter writing.
Yeah.
And one of the things
Cover letter is very important.
Okay.
Is it important or
Okay,
not?
we're gonna.
Some
Yeah,
people
that's
don't
a
like
debate.
it.
That's a debate. But during the lecture, one of the things that I always tell them is you have to tailor a resume and you have to look at the job description and you have to see what do I need to pull to the forefront and what can I kind of let go of. And so that's actually one of the things that I always encourage them to do is to tailor it more so. But does that mean you're lying? No. It just means you're highlighting certain things that you did.
Yep.
And you're kind of putting to the back burner. Maybe, if you're a server, yes, you were customer service. You had to balance. You had to,
How can I do this transition? How can I say the change from the title? I mean, do I write server? Or doing like maybe customer relationship manager,
You
or not
can.
even manager,
Yeah,
like
you can.
officer.
You can.
Not officer in a restaurant. You can't say it an
You
officer.
can get
of course.
creative.
Yeah.
You can get creative. Now that's where the AI is good. 'Cause
Exactly.
AI
I was
will help
about to
you
say
be
that.
creative.
This is a question to ChatGPT or whatever now.
Yes, yes,
whatever,
yeah.
even this ladder or something.
Exactly. Yes, it helps you be creative, so that's where the technology really comes in. But fundamentally, it's all you. And when you go into an interview, you're going to have to back up whatever you say.
Of course.
So,
Yeah.
you can only
Especially
go
in
so far.
professions, when it's profession or something technical.
Going to get to earlier about Mohammed, whenever we transitioned to Houston, that made it easier because now you have a much larger city, you have a much larger and diverse group
Brand
of
new
people.
career.
And he wanted to transition to IT, and he had knowledge. It wasn't like he didn't know anything.
Yeah, I know. He said
right?
that
But
in Egypt he was doing some also software
Yes.
work. Like it's
exactly,
less than here, but it's still there.
But so much had changed, and so he was kind of frustrated because he wanted to get into it and he wanted to get a job, but it was a little bit difficult. And that's whenever I suggested, well, get a certification, do some learning. You're going to have to, by that point in time, he felt like I've been a teacher not only of, people, but I've also been a mentor, and I've done all these things, and going back and learning something,
Yeah.
why should I have to go back and learn? But the reality is, if you want to try to do, especially in a career transition, you're going to have to go back. You're going to have to take a step back, and you're going to have to go and learn. And he did that, and after just the first certification that he studied for, that's when he got into IT.
Yep.
And he went into the interview, and he knew what they were talking about, and he knew what they were saying. But the networking definitely helps a lot. And then just having the understanding of where you're going, having the understanding of
Joining some groups, maybe organizations.
joining groups, associations.
They do a lot of
meeting-
job fairs, networking.
Meeting with people,
Yeah.
right? I mean, he's
Checking
met a
their
lot
feedback
of people.
for like.
Yeah.
I'm happy knowing you guys. Really, he can hear me now, so it's a pleasure, Muhammad, for some deeper. Yeah.
But yeah, I think my time in Egypt, I think, was great from an aspect of giving me a lot of new experiences.
That's good to hear.
And making me
Proud.
more open to a lot of different cultures and understanding, even in my job now that I have. So now I'm a director of HR.
I wanted to ask about that, by the way.
Yes.
So now you work for a company, but also you have your own,
Yes.
like consulting, like
Yes,
I would say LLC, right? Is it LLC or
Yeah.
that we're gonna use? I'm gonna use your service very soon. I mean, some people.
Yes. So after COVID, then I was working also in a company in HR, and then of course with COVID, I transitioned out of that company by my own choice, not because of COVID directly. But I really didn't like working in an office, and I was working in an
You're working
office.
from home. I like your office at home.
I know, I love my
So
office
you're still
at
working
home.
from. You have an office, but it's your own office, and
Yes,
you set it the way you like.
exactly. I can get
Same
out of
for me. I work from home. I'm remote.
exactly. It's great. So there was a transition period where I said, okay, I'm just going to do consulting.
Well, Cam, it's been great really having you. Seriously,
Yeah.
this was good opportunity. So I have to say that this is not the only episode,
Yes.
just the first episode.
Yeah.
We're gonna have at least, I don't know, I'm gonna go for more if I can, because educating, even if you can go in details, especially if we can just share this stuff. Maybe some of them we can even have a couple of them at least virtual, because we're gonna go through points or something. Share screen would be even better, or we can do this even in the back end. Would like to do that, so thank you so much for coming. We're gonna have
Thanks for having me.
sooner than later. We're gonna have at least part 2, part 3. I would like to go through advices for like how to build your resume.
Yeah.
Go to the process, actual resume. I want to show that. I know you can help with all of them. You've seen like zillion of resumes, right, in your career,
Yes.
and how to job hunt, and also for even not only job seekers, like even people who are recruiting, right? So candidate hunters, right? You call it, or so from both, like perspectives. But anyway, thank you again for coming. I don't want to
you're
keep you. Thank you so
welcome.
much.